All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here to talk about life and abortion. What are these concepts? Abortion and life. We hear about them all the time in today's society. It's such a huge issue, a leviathan, if you will, a ginormous issue in today's world, especially America. Let's start off with Matthew 10:16. Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents, and harmless as doves. I bring that up because we have to make sure that we are not deceitful like the other side. Planned Parenthood and their cohorts are quite deceitful. But we got to make sure that, one, we're not being deceitful, but two, we have to also be as wise as serpents, which means there's going to be a lot of strategy involved. Lots of common sayings about this issue are a woman's right to abortion. My body, my choice. Abortion is a human right. Reproductive choice. Abortion rights supporter. Pro-abortion access. Abortion is our right. We won't give up this fight. Liberate abortion. Protect abortion access. Abortion is essential. Abortion is healthcare. Reproductive justice movement. Pregnant person. Abortion provider. Anti-abortion. Freedom of choice. You can't legislate morality. Abortion should be a decision between a woman and her doctor. Just follow the science, right? If you can't trust me with a choice, how can you trust me with a child? Pro-family, pro-child, pro-choice. These are some of the deceitful sayings that we hear from the other side. This issue has so many sections, divisions, and rabbit holes that you could go down. If you like rabbit holes, abortion is the issue for you. There's plenty of information out there, and you can read nothing but this issue for years on end. There's the pregnant mother side, the doctors, the medical community, those that are post-abortive, the abortion culture, the pro-life community, what God says about it, and the history of it all. Let's start by defining some terms. And you're going to find that there's quite a bit of terms that need to be defined. Let's start with life. Life is defined as the condition that distinguishes animals and plants from inorganic matter, including the capacity for growth, reproduction, functional activity, and continual change preceding death. If you have breath, you have life as a human being. Abortion is the intentionally killing of an unborn, innocent human being without proper justification. Let me say that again. Abortion, intentionally killing an unborn, innocent human being without proper justification. Another term, infanticide. It's related to abortion. The deliberate killing of a child under 1 year old. Infanticide, the deliberate killing of a child under 1 year old. Neonaticide. Neonaticide is the killing, believe it or not, of a newborn within 24 hours of birth. Feticide, the act of causing the death of a fetus. What's a fetus? In Latin, it means offspring, bringing forth or hatching of young. Next definition is going to be abortifacient. It's a drug causing abortion. That's what abortifacient is. Sometimes we hear that. Something related to that, abortogenetic, a substance that induces abortion, and abortifacient. To abort is a verb meaning to end pregnancy. To abort something is to end it. Aborticide is the act of destroying a fetus within the uterus. An agent that destroys the fetus and causes abortion. Homicide is the killing of one person by another. So what's really different here from a homicide? Why aren't we calling it abortioncide? Side means to kill or cut down. That's why it's called homicide instead of just murder, which it obviously already is as well. Let's define the term human. What is a human, right? We're talking about an abortion of a human being. Animals don't commit abortions. It's just humans that kill their own for some reason. A bipedal primate mammal, Homo sapiens, a person or a man, usually in plural. Vocabulary.com says that human was first recorded in the mid-13th century and owes its existence to the Middle French humane, of or belonging to man. That word, in turn, comes from the Latin humanus, thought to be a hybrid relative of homo, meaning man, and humus, meaning earth. Man coming from the earth. How about the term person? Some people want to, even the pro-abortion side will say, yes, human life begins at conception when there's a fertilized egg. But they want to say that it's not a person until it comes out of the birth canal of the mom. So what's a person? A person is defined, according to Merriam-Webster, as a human being regarded as an individual. So is there really a difference between human and person? That's the real question. That's the legal question. Sometimes associated with this subject, we hear the term miscarriage. Is miscarriage an abortion? Well, let's define it. The expulsion of a fetus from the womb before it is able to survive independently, especially spontaneously, or as the result of an accident. Similar to that, stillborn or stillbirth. Stillbirth would be the birth of an infant that has died in the womb strictly after having survived through at least the first 28 weeks of pregnancy. Earlier instances being regarded as abortion or miscarriage. And also now we got spontaneous abortion. Spontaneous abortion, according to the National Institutes of Health, they say it's an early pregnancy loss that's generally defined as a spontaneous pregnancy loss before 10 to 13 weeks of gestational age. Even just the term abortion, in a lot of these medical dictionaries, will say that it's up to the 20th week of gestation. I'm sorry, but doesn't gestation last for 40 weeks? That's the full term, the full 9 months if a baby stays in the womb the whole time before it's expected to be born. Moving on, we have ectopic pregnancy. Occasionally you hear about ectopic pregnancy. Well, what is an ectopic pregnancy? The Mayo Clinic says an ectopic pregnancy occurs when a fertilized egg implants and grows outside the main cavity of the uterus. An ectopic pregnancy most often occurs in a fallopian tube, which carries eggs from the ovaries to the uterus. This type of ectopic pregnancy is also called a tubal pregnancy. And unfortunately, whenever that happens, it actually endangers both the baby and the mother and has to be removed. But nobody in medical society will tell you that's an abortion. So it's a very different term. It's ectopic pregnancy. Okay, moving on. The last of these definitions. Gynecology is the study of diseases affecting women and their reproductive health. And then we have obstetrics. Let me get a drink of water here. Anybody learning anything yet? We got a quiet crowd here today. Obstetrics, the study of pregnancy and childbirth. Up until the mid-1800s, gynecology and obstetrics were combined, but then they started to get split at that time. And lastly, quickening. The first motion of a fetus in the uterus felt by the mother, usually somewhat before the middle of the period of gestation, before the 20th week. That's when babies tend to be felt by the mom. Quickly, I want to go over just the simple who, what, when, where, why, and how that you learn about in elementary school on the topic of abortion. Of course, you don't learn about abortion in elementary school, but you learn the 5 W's and who, right? And how. So, who, abortion happens when a pregnant woman decides she can't be a mom for any reason. She just decides that, or she's told that. What? Abortion is intentionally killing an unborn, innocent human being without proper justification. When the abortion can happen at any time between the fertilization, when mom and dad come together, and the birth of the baby. So any of the time during those 9 months. Where? Well, abortions generally happen, or have in the past happened, at an abortion clinic, but now it's starting to happen more where the woman lives, and can happen anywhere someone is willing to cause the termination or murder of the fruit of the womb, the pregnancy. 60% of the abortions going on today are chemical abortions. Why? Abortion happens because the pregnant mother is either told or for some reason believes that she must terminate the pregnancy. And how abortion is accomplished either through surgical tools or chemicals. It usually takes a few weeks for the pregnant mother to realize that she has become pregnant. In some states and countries, abortion is legal all the way up to birth. Others do not legally allow it at any point in the pregnancy. So we have 2 different types of abortion and 2 different types once again. But I mean, it'll become clear in a second. So we have the clinical types that Roe v. Wade allowed for all 50 states until that got overturned in 2022. And we have the chemical abortions, which have been up and coming and have definitely made a much bigger move since 2022. And then when you have clinical abortions, you have therapeutic abortions, which are done for medical reasons, which after 22 weeks, the baby is able to live outside the womb. We know this because a baby has survived after 22 weeks outside the womb. It takes a lot of medical interventions, but we make it happen. We have the technology today. And then there's elective or voluntary abortions, which are done solely for convenience. And that's at least 98% of the abortions out there. Just hearing a talk yesterday, 1% of abortions are people that have been raped, and 0.5% of abortions are because of people that have had incest going on and caused that pregnancy to occur. Whereas when somebody is raped and they have an abortion, they're actually giving the person that raped them a second victim. Not just the person that's been raped is a victim, but the child is now also a victim. That's important to remember. All right, let's get into some history of abortion and when abortion started. At least, how far back in mankind's history do we find abortion appearing? Well, the earliest time that we see it written about is in around 1600 BC, 3,600 years ago. The ancient Egyptian Papyrus Ebers describes methods. The woman empties out the conceived in the first, second, or third time period by herbs, vaginal douches, and suppositories. Hippocrates, while he wasn't for it, also mentioned methods of inducing abortion in the 4th century BC as well. Publius Ovidius Naso, commonly known as Ovid, was a Roman poet whose collection of works, Amours, describes the narrator's emotional turmoil as he watches his lover suffering from a mismanaged abortion, while she rashly is overthrowing the burden of her pregnant womb. Weary Carina lies in danger of her life. Having attempted so great a danger without telling me, she deserves my anger, but my anger dies with fear. He was helpless. In 1716, New York passed an ordinance prohibiting midwives from providing abortion. In 1821, we have another American law where in the state of Connecticut, any person it punished any person who provided or took poison with the intent to cause a miscarriage. That was in the state of Connecticut. And now I've got some information from the Embryo Project Encyclopedia of Arizona State University. Horatio Robinson Storer, that's S-T-O-R-E-R. He was a surgeon and anti-abortion activist in the 1800s who worked in the field of women's reproductive health, according to some anyway, and led the physicians' crusade against abortion in the U.S. In 1857, he started what is just said, the physicians' crusade against abortion. In May of that year, they created a committee to investigate criminal abortions within Suffolk County in Massachusetts. Storer was appointed to chair the Committee on Criminal Abortion for the American Medical Association until it wrapped up in 1859. When, in 1859, it published the committee's report, and it published by the North American Medico-Surgical Review, which was published as a book by J.B. Lippincott and Company, titled On Criminal Abortion in America in 1860. It asserts that abortion was a criminal and immoral act in the vast majority of cases. And here we have the first instance of what we've continued to, what we hear constantly nowadays. We have to have what? Exceptions for what? Except in rare instances when the life of the pregnant mother, or pregnant woman rather, was at stake and could not be saved by any other medical intervention. Of course, now, in the 21st century, we have a few medical technologies that we didn't have back in the 19th century, I'd say, right? Medicine's come quite a long way. And so we're able to do a lot for the mother that we weren't able to do at the time, as well as for the child still in the womb. Today, we have recorded instances, including by Dr. Ben Carson, of having surgeries on babies still in the womb. Now, I think you have to have be a person in order to have an operation done on you, right? So what's the baby in the womb called then? Is it not a person yet? I mean, these are the questions that we need to challenge the other side with. According to a website called ourbodiesourselves.org, in 1967, Colorado became the first U.S. state to decriminalize abortion. Although only in cases of rape, incest, or when the pregnancy could cause permanent physical disability to the woman. In 1970, Hawaii legalized abortion through 20 weeks for residents of that state. And then we have New York becoming the first state to legalize abortion on demand through the 24th week of pregnancy. Washington, D.C. also allowed abortions, while Alaska and Washington followed suit that same year, 1970. Going back a little bit, in 1873, we had the Comstock laws. Those are critical being passed in America because it did not allow our U.S. mail system to deliver obscene materials, which included pornography, contraception, things about abortion. In 1964, we have Jerry Santoro, who dies from an abortion and becomes a symbol for this abortion rights movement. Then in January 22nd, 1973, a date that will live in infamy, we have Roe v. Wade coming down from the U.S. Supreme Court as finding a right to abortion. Of course, in 1992, we have Planned Parenthood of Southeastern Pennsylvania versus Casey being a Supreme Court case, and they established that there has to be a standard for evaluating abortion restrictions. The court couldn't just create an undue burden. And finally, on June 24th of 2022, Dobbs versus Jackson, Women's Health Organization, overturned Roe v. Wade in the Casey decision, which brought it back to the states. And then you had about 14 different states, including Missouri, starting to say that, well, they had these trigger laws go into effect and said, we're now abortion free. As much as I'd like to believe that Missouri, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and other states have been abortion free since then, it's not quite the case. We still have these chemical abortions, which have taken root in 60% of the abortions. It's just easier for the clinics and the Planned Parenthoods of the world to give these young ladies that are pregnant some pills to dispose and terminate their pregnancy. All right, moving on. What does God, the author and creator of life, have to say about all of this? Well, he's got quite a bit to say. In 2 Kings 15:16, it says, Then Menahem smote Tiphsah and all that were therein, and the coast thereof from Tirzah, because they opened not to him. Therefore he smote it, and all the women therein that were with child he ripped up. He literally opened the stomach of these people. Proverbs 6:16 through 19, we see just how much God hates this act of abortion. Quote, These 6 things doth the Lord hate, yea, 7 are an abomination unto him. A proud look, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood. Innocent blood. God goes on to say, and heart that deviseth wicked imaginations, feet that be swift in running to mischief, a false witness that speaketh lies, and he that soweth discord among brethren. So God hates abortion. We should also hate abortion. The question is, how do we abort abortion? That's the real question. In Hosea 4:6, God tells us, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me, seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God, I will also forget thy children. We are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Hopefully, I am helping to educate you on some important matters dealing with this huge issue of abortion. Jeremiah 1:5, God tells us, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee. And I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. He knows us when we're still in the womb. God calls us a person then. In fact, he uses the same Greek term, briefos, when we're in the womb and out of the womb. When we're still in the womb, when we've been born. Of course, in Exodus 20:13, God tells us, thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not kill. Psalm 127:3, lo, children are, I think my printer's messing up. Anyway, children are an heritage of the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is his reward. In Genesis 1:27, he tells us, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. We are image bearers of God. If we are allowed to have the image of God, why are we allowed to kill ourselves? In or out of the womb, especially in the womb. I mean, abortion is obviously a great sin. But God forgives. I mean, anybody associated with abortion and abortion happening, it's going to be a lot of judgment, but God also wants to forgive all of us for all of our trespasses, including if you've had something to do with the killing of an unborn baby. The gospel of Jesus Christ forgives all. In Luke 1:36 through 44, we see that Jesus Christ, when he's still in the womb, and John the Baptist meet. And there's great interaction between them. And behold, thy cousin Elizabeth, she hath also conceived a son in her old age. And this is the 6th month with her, who is called barren. For with God nothing shall be impossible. And Mary said, behold, the handmaid of the Lord, be it unto me according to thy word. And the angel departed from her. And Mary arose in those days, and went into the hill country with haste, into a city of Judah, and entered into the house of Zacharias, and saluted Elizabeth. And it came to pass that when Elizabeth heard the salutation of Mary, the babe leaped in her womb. And Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Ghost. And she spake out with a loud voice, and said, blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb. In Luke 2:12, We have, and this shall be a sign unto you. Ye shall find the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. Luke 2:16. And they came with haste and found Mary and Joseph and the babe lying in a manger. God uses the Greek term briefos in these examples, as well as in the last examples when he's talking about Jesus in the womb. God shows no partiality between the child in the womb and the child out of the womb. You and me, we've been allowed to be born. When we were children in the Greek, it was briefos. When we were in our mama's womb, if God talked about us, it was briefos in Greek. We have the story of Samson becoming a Nazirite while still in the womb. Clearly, God has a different take on us when we're still in the womb than some do in our society today. Judges 13, 3-7. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto the woman, and said unto her, Behold now, thou art barren, and bearest not, but thou shalt conceive, and bear a son. Now therefore, beware, I pray thee. I drink not wine, nor strong drink, and drink not wine, nor strong drink, and eat not any unclean thing. For lo, thou shalt conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall come on his head, for the child shall be a Nazirite unto God from the womb, and he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. Then the woman came and told her husband, saying, A man of God came unto me, and his countenance was like the countenance of an angel of God, very terrible. That was my position there. But I asked him not whence he was, neither told me his name. But he said unto me, Behold, thou shalt conceive, and bear a son. And now drink no wine, nor strong drink, neither eat any unclean thing, for the child shall be a Nazirite to God from the womb to the day of his death. Of course, we have Matthew 22, 37-40, where God tells us to love thy neighbor. How do you love your neighbor if you've aborted your neighbor? It's not very loving to abort your neighbor. Who's your neighbor? All the human beings around you. Even the pro-abortion community agrees that these are human beings. Matthew 22, 37-40. Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. Isaiah 49, verses 1 and 5. Listen, O isles, unto me, and hearken, ye people, from far. The Lord hath called me from the womb. From the bowels of my mother hath he made mention of my name. And now saith the Lord, that formed me from the womb to be his servant, to bring Jacob again to him. Though Israel be not gathered, yet shall I be glorious in the eyes of the Lord, and my God shall be my strength. 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves, and pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, and will forgive their sin, and will heal their land. America needs healing from this great sin of abortion. The whole world does. Isaiah 1:15 tells us, "And when ye spread forth your hands, I will hide mine eyes from you. Yea, when ye make many prayers, I will not hear. Your hands are full of blood." 60 million Americans on the low end have been aborted. Imagine that you're on vacation in whatever country you've always dreamed of visiting, and you wake up to see on TV that the United States was hit by a nuclear attack, right? It could happen. Kansas City and St. Louis are gone. In fact, each person in Missouri has been killed. The same is true in Kansas and Oklahoma. The hard hits keep coming. Iowa's been blown off the map. So have Nebraska and Arkansas. Minnesota and Mississippi are only ash heaps. South Dakota, North Dakota, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, West Virginia. All the people who lived in those 20 states are now dead. Dead. They're not coming back to life. This illustration shows just how many Americans we've aborted. The population of those 20 states in July of 2023 was 65,222,346. I mean, that's more than the state of California. So you could just take a knife to California and push it off into the ocean. We've aborted all those people. They're not alive anymore. Would we literally do that to people that have already been born? So why are we doing that to people that are in the process of being made, like you and I were? John 8:44. Ye are of your father the devil, and the lusts of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. That's how he started. If you haven't come to Christ, unfortunately, your father is the devil. But it doesn't have to stay that way. I would say that those that believe strongly in abortion and are pro-abortion and are saying, yes, Margaret Sanger was a good gal, have a lot of judgment coming their way. Okay, so how did we get here in America? How did we get here in the world? Well, unfortunately, there was a pastor, believe it or not, a member of the clergy named Thomas Malthus in the late 1700s. He saw how society, how the population of humans was going up at quite a rate. And he didn't think that the level of food supply could go up at the same rate. So he, in his own infinite wisdom, right, decided, you know, we have to figure out how to get rid of those that just shouldn't be here, the unfit, the people that are deemed unworthy to be alive, right? Who gets to decide that? Well, Thomas Malthus started that concept where really evolution comes out of that, and then we have eugenics coming from that. And eugenics, Margaret Sanger really liked eugenics and said that abortion and eugenics were sisters. I think that's what she said. But Margaret Sanger is a really important figure that a lot of people just know her as Margaret Sanger, but her full name would be Margaret Louise Higgins Sanger Slee. She was born actually into a Roman Catholic family. Surprising, I know. And for a while she was a good Catholic girl. She even got baptized and baptized into the Roman Catholic Church. But her dad was more or less the village idiot, the atheist of the village. And when her mom died, she was born, by the way, in 1879. When her mom died in 1897, well, things started to go off the rails for Margaret. And she didn't take her mother's death very well. She decided she needed to get out of Cornwallis in New York, where she's from. And, well, she ended up going to Clav Rock School or something like that. And when she's there, she gets a part-time job, but she's not really into the college experience, finishing high school, and she's not really into her job, so she's got to move on to something. So she ends up deciding to become a kindergarten teacher, or become a teacher, and they let her be a kindergarten teacher. Well, she decided after a little while that she didn't like the mundane nature of that either. And so she decides to go and give nursing a try. So she goes to nursing school, or at least starts it anyway, at White Plains, New York. And that didn't last too long. Quit in her first year. So she did not graduate from being a nurse. She did the basics. She didn't move beyond the basics. So anybody from the other side saying that she, did abortions because she was a nurse and everything, no, that's not why. But then she met William Sanger. And William Sanger is actually who introduced her down this line that would not be good for you and me. He was into the revolutionaries of the day, the socialists. And they made quite a bit of a difference in the 1912 election when Woodrow Wilson was elected. And we also got that Internal Revenue Service agency out of that election, as well as we changed how we elect our U.S. senators. They used to fully get elected by the state legislatures, but not so much today. No, they're directly elected by the people today, but that may not be for the best. Anyway, moving on. Margaret Sanger, Margaret Sanger, what to say about Margaret Sanger? There's so much to say about Margaret Sanger. I even have a whole kind of draw out. That's the closest you're going to find to me drawing something, by the way. And for the record, for those watching this video, my name is Philip J. Sherman. I didn't say that before, like I should have. Margaret Sanger gets into these revolutionaries. And at first she's like making fun of them. She's like, what in the world? That's so ridiculous. And she was right at that time. But then she sees John Reed, or Jack Reed. And it's like, whoa. She got hooked. She got enthusiastic about all of this. And that's when she decided she's going to start reading about this. She's going to start learning. Her husband, William Sanger, was an architect, so she was quite well to do, so she didn't have to go work somewhere. And by this time, she had also grown tired of just raising kids. She had 3. One died at the age of 4 or 5, but she grew weary of just raising kids. Imagine that. And she ends up becoming an organizer with the Socialist Party. It's dealing with the International World Workers Union. And she has so much success at this that the company is like, okay, yeah, well, we're sorry. It's like, they don't really want them to say they're sorry. They're just trying to bring about the revolution that's supposed to come, right? She's not for capitalism at all. But even the President of the United States says, yeah, what can we do about this? We want to fix this. So while she might have won the battle, she didn't really win the war. And then she's got an article that she's writing in the newspaper at the time. And she gets so much into this revolutionary stuff that her husband ends up saying, you know what, we're going to go over to Paris, France. We're going to live in Paris, France for a while. I want to get Margaret away from all this that she's learning about. And he goes and he's also painting over there. And, well, after a while, she's like, William, we need to go back to the States. I need to be around my revolutionary friends. He's like, no, we're going to stay here. And she's like, fine, I'll leave you and the kids here and I'll go back. And then she's, in 1914, she actually starts the Woman Rebel, which, as her slogan, is no God, no masters. The Woman Rebel, the slogan is no God, no masters. That ought to tell you where she's coming from, right? Well, she's distributing information through the U.S. mail. So the Comstock Laws of 1873 come up. And it's known that anybody that gets charged with the Comstock Laws, which is a federal law, they don't do too well. They get 5-10 years in the federal penitentiary. Well, she knows she's not likely to beat this, but she gets some false identification from her friends and makes her way up to Canada and then over to England, where she joins revolutionaries there. And it's only in England that she learns about Thomas Malthus and how we need to not be doing Christian charity to help the poor, but need to find ways of getting rid of the unfit, as she sees it, and her friends. I hope you can see the problem with this. They're playing God. And so she ends up having a few bedfellows. She's no longer feeling constrained to her marriage vows. And Havelock Ellis talks with her and strategizes with her. He's like, hey, you got to tone down the rhetoric. You're being too revolutionary, and you got to change your PR. You got to change how the public relations and how you look. When you go back to the United States, you're still going to have these charges, but you can beat the charges by making it look in a different light, being dishonest about it, giving those half-truths, like some of the Democrat Party seem to do on a regular basis today. And Havelock Ellis, by the way, has anybody heard of Alfred Kinsey? Alfred Kinsey, who, by the way, got his funding from Hugh Hefner, and got quite a bit of funding from Hugh Hefner to do all of this sexual perversion and get the sexual education stuff going. Havelock Ellis was Great Britain's version of Alfred Kinsey. Not a good guy. Wrote 7 volumes that you don't want to read. And I don't want to read either. It's sexual perversion, quite frankly. Out of that is really where we get the concept of birth control. And by the way, eugenics, that's being followed by Margaret Sanger and Adolf Hitler. You'll find there's a connection between those two as well. Eugenics is coined by Francis Galton, who's just a cousin, first cousin of none other than Charles Darwin. And going back to, okay, that's eugenics. There's so much to talk about. We could go on for days, right? I mean, out of Malthusianism, you also get some things that hopefully you've never heard of. Lambrosianism, craniometricism, one-adinism, phrenology, bionetism, polygenesis, hereditarianism, neotenism, Freudianism, or after Sigmund Freud, Freudianism, I mean, recapitalism, something like that, anyway. All of these terms are developed out of Malthusianism, along with evolution and eugenics. And from eugenics, birth control, which is a term coined by Margaret Sanger, brings about abortion. So that, in a nutshell, is how we get to abortion. And some people will try to tell you Margaret Sanger didn't want abortions to happen. Well, she was for Planned Parenthood, who comes out of American Birth Control League. The American Birth Control League was birthed in 1921, and out of that came Planned Parenthood. They just renamed themselves in 1942 as their PR wasn't going too well. They needed to change themselves, and some people knew about how Adolf Hitler spoke highly of Margaret Sanger and the people around her. And also the American Birth Control League shared offices with the American Eugenics Association. Anyway, you could give a whole talk just about Margaret Sanger. But where do we go from here? And of course, in Missouri, we had abortion, Amendment 3 in Missouri last year, which through a lot of deceitfulness and deception was passed over the state of Missouri, making people think that they weren't really trying to do what they're trying to do, which is have abortion in all circumstances at all times. So what are some solutions? Well, in the Missouri State Legislature today, we have a couple of great bills. One in the Senate, one in the House. We have what's called the Equal Protection Amendment, Senate Bill 619, which this act establishes the Equal Protection Act. Under this act, the intent of the General Assembly is to acknowledge the sanctity of innocent human life, which should be protected from the beginning of biological development to natural death. So we need to make sure that our representatives and our senators are supporting Senate Bill 619 in the state of Missouri. In the House, we have House Bill 1072, or HB 1072, the Missouri Prenatal Equal Protection Act. And these are just trying to make sure that those in the womb have the same rights as you and me outside of the womb. Like we have the Pledge of Allegiance. Really, I would like to add 3 words to the Pledge of Allegiance: born and unborn. We have to make sure that the unborn are also represented by our American Pledge of Allegiance. We are murdering American citizens every day in the womb. Some other action steps that we have. Prayer. We cannot take prayer too lightly. Prayer is simply talking to God. He wants us to give Him all of our problems. And obviously, no one person is going to be able to abort abortion. But together, we can do that. There's also 3 pillars of giving. There's your time, treasure, and talent. The time that you can give, we all have time. And then there's treasure. Some of us have more finances than others that we can give. And then there's talent. We all have specific skill sets. There's something that all of us can do. And then lastly, there's a few pro-life companies and organizations that we all need to try to support, or are great to support. There's the White Rose Resistance, which is an excellent up-and-coming pro-life organization, which comes from the story of World War II. There were a small group of Germans that said, we are German, we are Christian, therefore we must not accept what Hitler is doing to us. We have to fight back. Of the roughly 18,000 churches in Germany during World War II, there were only about 3,000 that really spoke out against Hitler and what he was doing. They would oftentimes hear the train going by while they're singing, and they heard screaming from these trains. That doesn't sound like cattle to me. That's humans. And instead of doing something with their hands, feet, and mouth, they simply just sang louder. Like that's going to solve anything. I mean, maybe they don't temporarily hear it, but that doesn't solve the killing. There's a company called Pro-Life Payments, a merchant processor, saving babies with every swipe. We can all vote with our wallets. There's a bank that's new, just got started last year, or in 2024, yes. Pro-Life FinTech. That's Pro-Life FinTech, F-I-N-T-E-C-H. And they're saying that they're going to give 50% of their profits to pro-life organizations. And then there's also Every Life Diapers. Now you would think that diaper companies would just want to support mothers and make sure that they have more babies so that they can sell more diapers, right? I mean, that makes business sense. That's kind of logical, right? But no. Every Life Diapers had to be started because all of these other diaper companies, in one way or another, are supporting Planned Parenthood and the pro-abortion agenda. I mean, that's ludicrous. And then we have a fund, an investment fund that only invests in good causes. They actually are a Catholic fund, so they won't go against anything. They won't invest in any company that has anything to do with the pro-abortion agenda. They're called Ave Maria Value Fund, the Ave Maria Value Fund. Okay, well, that's all I got for you today. Thanks, I appreciate it.